Let me take you back to one of the most dramatic, divisive, and chilling chapters in American Cold War history. A story that lies at the intersection of espionage, ideology, love, betrayal, and the machinery of justice. This is the case of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. It was the early 1950s, a time when fear was currency and suspicion was policy. The United States was gripped by Cold War paranoia. The Soviet Union had just tested its first atomic bomb in 1949, years ahead of Western estimates. The American public and government were stunned. How did the Soviets gain nuclear knowledge so quickly? Had someone leaked America's most vital secret? The search for spies intensified, and the Rosenbergs, an ordinary Jewish couple from New York, would soon become its most famous targets. Let's start with Julius Rosenberg. Born in 1918 to a poor Jewish family on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, he was intelligent, driven, and passionate about science and politics. He studied electrical engineering at the City College of New York, where he also became deeply involved with the Young Communist League. It was there that he met Ethel Greenglass, an aspiring singer and actress from a similar Jewish background. Ethel was intelligent and politically engaged. Though her dreams of becoming a star had faded, her devotion to Julius and to leftist causes endured. They married in 1939, and Julius took a job as an engineer with the Army Signal Corps. At the time, security protocols were far more relaxed than they are today. Julius had access to sensitive information, including details on radar and guided missile systems. Around 1942 or 1943, the exact date is disputed. He was allegedly recruited by Soviet intelligence to be a spy. According to later testimony, Julius began building a network of contacts, including engineers and military personnel who could supply classified data. One of the central figures in the case would turn out to be Ethel's younger brother, David Greenglass, a machinist at the top-secret Manhattan Project located in Los Alamos. David's role became crucial in unraveling what truly happened and how the Soviets obtained American nuclear secrets. In 1950, amidst mounting pressure on Soviet espionage in the U.S., British authorities arrested Klaus Fuchs, a German-born physicist who had worked on the Manhattan Project and passed nuclear secrets to the Soviets. Fuchs confessed to being a spy and named Harry Gold, a Swiss-born American laboratory chemist, as his courier. Gold then in turn implicated David Greenglass, Ethel's younger brother. Under interrogation, Greenglass named his brother-in-law, Julius Rosenberg, as the person who recruited him to be a spy for the Soviets. Later, crucially, he would also implicate his older sister, Ethel. In July of 1950, Julius Rosenberg was arrested. A few weeks later, Ethel was arrested as well. The charges: conspiracy to commit espionage. Not espionage itself, but conspiracy. A legally significant distinction. Still, the punishment for conspiracy to deliver information relating to the national defense to a foreign power during wartime could include the death penalty. What then followed was a case that captivated the nation. The Rosenberg trial began in March 1951 in the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York. The prosecution was led by Irving Sapol and Roy Cohn. Cohn would later become infamous as Senator Joseph McCarthy's right-hand man, a notoriously polarizing American figure in his own right, infamous for leading a period of intense anti-communist suspicion and accusation campaigns in the United States, known as McCarthyism. From 1950, he claimed numerous communist and Soviet spies were infiltrating the U.S. government, universities, and other institutions, without providing any substantial evidence. The prosecution's case rested heavily on the testimony of David and his wife, Ruth Greenglass. David claimed that Julius had convinced him to hand over handwritten notes and sketches related to the atomic bomb. More controversially, he testified that Ethel typed up these notes, a key action that linked her directly to the conspiracy. There was no physical evidence tying Ethel Rosenberg to espionage. No intercepted messages, no documents, no fingerprints on classified material, nothing. The case against her rested almost entirely upon her brother's testimony, a brother who had cut a deal to protect his own wife from prosecution. The Rosenbergs pleaded not guilty. They maintained their innocence to the very end. They refused to name names, admit guilt, or cooperate in any way with the investigation. Their silence, whether an act of integrity or defiance, would end up costing them dearly. The jury deliberated for just over 8 hours. On March 29, 1951, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were found guilty of conspiracy to commit espionage. On April 5th, they were both sentenced to death. The prosecution delivered a powerful rebuke to the couple's claims of innocence, blaming them for initiating a chain of events that enabled the Soviet Union to develop atomic weapons, escalate the arms race, and potentially cause the Korean War. The judge in this case, Irvin Kaufman, argued that their crime had, in fact, altered the course of history to the disadvantage of our country. Appeals followed, but each was denied. As the date of execution approached, public outcry grew, particularly regarding Ethel. Many saw her as a pawn, or worse, a scapegoat sacrificed to pressure Julius into confessing for his crimes. Intellectuals, artists, and activists from around the world, including Albert Einstein and Pope Pius XII, pleaded for their clemency. The case became a symbol, depending on one's perspective, of either Cold War justice or Cold War hysteria. But the government would not relent. President Dwight D. Eisenhower, facing political pressure to appear tough on communism, refused to commute the sentences. On June 19, 1953, at Sing Sing Prison in upstate New York, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were executed by the electric chair. They left behind two young sons, Michael and Robert, who were orphaned by the state. The execution of the Rosenbergs, especially Ethel, remains one of the most debated legal and moral decisions in U.S. history. So what do we know now? Decades later, the fall of the Soviet Union and the declassification of Venona Project intercepts, secret U.S. decryptions of Soviet communications, provided some new insights. These documents revealed that Julius Rosenberg did in fact have a code name, Liberal, and that he was indeed involved in spying for the Soviet Union. He had provided the Soviets with valuable industrial and military information, though the actual impact of what he delivered to them is still debated to this very day. As for Ethel, the evidence remains unclear. Her name appears very sparingly in Venona documents, and never conclusively. Some historians argue she was likely aware of her husband's activities, but did not actively participate. In 2001, David Greenglass, whose testimony had been instrumental, admitted that he had lied about Ethel's role to protect his own wife. He had no direct knowledge of Ethel typing any notes. That revelation reignited controversy. Had the U.S. executed an innocent woman? Was Ethel's prosecution a calculated move to pressure Julius? And what does the Rosenberg case tell us about justice in times of national fear? The answer to that last question might lie in the Rosenbergs' enduring legacy. Their sons, Michael and Robert, were adopted by a sympathetic couple and grew up to become activists and scholars. For years, they campaigned to exonerate their parents, particularly their mother. In recent decades, they've acknowledged that their father, Julius, was very likely a Soviet spy, but maintained that Ethel was wrongfully convicted and executed. The case of Julius and Ethel Rosenberg continues to serve as a mirror held up to America's conscience. It reflects the tensions of its time, the struggle between national security and civil liberties, the dangers of ideological extremism, and the corrosive power of fear. It's also a deeply human story of a couple united by politics and love, of betrayal by family, of silence held until death, of children abandoned and forced to reconstruct the truth from fragments. It's a story that refuses to go away, due in part to the fact that it asks questions of morality that we still wrestle with to this very day. Can justice be blind in an age of terror? Can courts remain impartial when the public demands retribution? Can governments pursue security without sacrificing principles? The Rosenbergs were not saints. Julius most certainly committed espionage, and he did so at a time when the Cold War was rapidly escalating into a global ideological struggle. But Ethel should be considered a tragedy. We may never know exactly what she knew or what she did, but her execution, based on flimsy evidence and sibling betrayal, feels to many like a profound miscarriage of justice, one that will never be undone. Their story is taught in law schools and remembered in political debates. It has inspired novels, films, and protest. It lingers not just as a Cold War case file, but as a cultural touchstone. When we debate surveillance, whistleblowing, treason, or the death penalty, echoes of the Rosenbergs often surface. In the end, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg died proclaiming their innocence. Whether you believe them or not, their deaths mark a moment in history when fear overpowered reason, and when a nation, in trying to defend its values, may have very well betrayed them instead.